never made it, but I know what it takes. I'm motivated by a mix of emotion. Got my statement, and I'm reading it slow so I can understand it fully. Appreciate my standing, go out of this world and right on time. Oh, never in my life have I seen the sky light up like this. I'm far away from Earth and I wanna know if you exist. Mission control, do you read me? Send me my coordinates lately. Mission control, am I drifting? Tie me to someone who will love me, yeah. Wait, I think I'll last a bit longer. Find another.
Welcome everyone. Welcome everyone. Welcome everyone to another Ref Brandon and the Todd Family YouTube video. Wherever you are, whatever you may be doing, thank you so much for making Ref Brandon and the Todd Family a part of your day. We always greatly appreciate it. It's a Thursday, so we're more than 3/4 of the way to the weekend. Hopefully everybody is looking forward to another weekend and looking forward to coming to see me Saturday night in Eastonolly, Georgia, or Sunday afternoon in Colbert, Georgia. But on to today's video, I want to mainly talk about my early season predictions for college football conferences and divisions, but we'll talk about that coming up here in a couple of minutes. First, I want to say that in case you have not heard, the NFL is going to appeal the suspension of Deshaun Watson. Originally, they agreed that 6 games was going to be the suspension, but now they're actually going to try and seek more, and I don't quite know for sure how many games they're trying to get. The last article I read said about 15, which is really pretty much the whole season. And for Deshaun Watson's sake, if this happens, it might be the end of his career. I hope not. I know he's still really young, but we got to remember that he didn't play at all last year. And if he gets suspended this year pretty much for the whole season, you're talking about a guy that won't play any football in 2 years. And when you sit back and you haven't played in 2 years, your speed's not going to be the same. Your timing's not going to be the same. Nothing's going to be the same because you haven't played. So if he is suspended for basically the whole season, it may end his career, but I sure hope not. And then the next question that I had before we talk about conferences and divisions as we preview the upcoming college football season. This is something I heard about yesterday, and I want to know if anybody else has heard about it. And if you have, and if you can clearly explain it to me and make it make sense, I'm all for it. But I heard about this yesterday on the radio, and it originally supposedly came from ESPN, which doesn't surprise me. ESPN's been getting stupider and stupider the past 5 years, so I'm not surprised by that. But supposedly ESPN is wanting college football to play their bowl games in August. So they want you to play your bowl game before the regular season. But that's all I'm getting out of the article. If you play your bowl game before the season, outside of the playoffs, how do you determine who goes to what bowl? Because bowl games usually, for the most part, outside of the 4 playoff teams, are determined by what conference you're in and what record you have. But your record is going to be 0-0 because you haven't played a game. So how do you know what bowl game you go to? And to me, this idea is absolutely stupid. I know ESPN is wanting it because It helps them start football even earlier. But if you play the bowl game before the season, it pretty much becomes like a scrimmage or a preseason game in NFL terminology. And anybody that follows the NFL knows that for the most part, preseason games is a bunch of backups. Some make the team, some don't. If you start playing your bowl games before the season, these college football head coaches are going to look at it as a preseason game because it has no reflection on your regular season whatsoever. So, what would be the point of playing the game? Because most coaches aren't going to play their starters. So, you're going to watch a college football bowl game on August the 14th, and it's going to be the backup quarterback, the backup running back, the backup receivers, the backup kickers, and I don't understand the philosophy behind that whatsoever. But again, it's an ESPN idea, so I'm not surprised by it. ESPN hasn't had a good idea in probably 10 years now. But if anybody can make this make sense and tell me how you know what bowl game you're going to when you have not played a game yet, and is this going to be a reflection on your regular season record, or is it going to be just a preseason game? At the end of the season, are you going to be 11-1 playing 12 games, or are you going to be 12-1 or 11-2 based on what you did in your bowl game? I don't understand it at all. I know it's ESPN's way to try to compete with the NFL because you'll have college football bowl games on around about the same time as NFL preseason. So if the bowl game actually is a regular bowl game with real-time players playing in it, you may actually do better than the NFL. But if it's a glorified scrimmage, it's going to be a bunch of backups. So if you can explain it to me, please feel free, because I want to understand it and want to make it make sense. But on to the main topic of today's video, and that is another college football early season prediction. I'm going to be giving you who I think is going to win each division in each conference. And of course, the conferences that don't have divisions, I'll tell you which two teams I think will come out of that conference with the best record and play for the conference championship. And we'll go in alphabetical order just because it's easier that way. The ACC in the Atlantic, I'm going to pick Clemson. The Coastal, honestly, really, truly, is a hard one because Duke's not winning it. Georgia Tech's not winning it. But I really, truly think that any of the other 5 teams could win it. I think all of them have strong points. All of them have weak points. But somebody has to win it. So I'll go with Pittsburgh just because I like Pat Narduzzi. And Pat Narduzzi has shown and proven that he can win as a football coach. So the ACC, I'll go with Clemson and Pittsburgh. In the Big Ten, I'll go with Ohio State out of the East. And the West is a hard one because the best 2 teams in the West, in my opinion, are going to be Iowa and Wisconsin. But I think Iowa's going to have a down year. So I think Wisconsin comes out of the West. But watch out for Ohio State. I don't think people understand how good their offense is going to be. Jackson, Smith, and Jigba is the best wide receiver in the country. Their other wide receiver, Marvin Harrison Jr., is probably a top 10 wide receiver. And their running back, Henderson, is probably the 2nd or 3rd best running back in the country. You can make an argument he's the best, and I think that their quarterback, C.J. Stroud, according to most people, is the best quarterback in the country. He is the most explosive quarterback in the country, but he's the 2nd best quarterback in the country behind Devin Leary. Now, don't come to me in 2 years if Devin Leary doesn't pan out in the NFL and say, what happened to Devin Leary? Because I'm only specifically talking college, and Devin Leary had 35 touchdowns and 5 interceptions last year. He's not explosive. He's not always pretty, but he gets the job done. But C.J. Stroud is the second best quarterback in the country. So Ohio State has a top 2 or 3 quarterback, a top 2 or 3 running back, and the best wide receiver, and another top 10 wide receiver. They might average 45 points a game this year easily, might even average 50 points a game this year. The Big 12 is another hard one because I don't think there's any team that's far and away better than any other team. I don't think Kansas has a shot, TCU has no shot, and Texas Tech has no shot. But any of the other teams have a legit chance. But I'll go with Oklahoma and Baylor. I almost picked Kansas State, but I'll go with Oklahoma and Baylor. The Pac-12 is doing away with divisions this year as well. So in the Pac-12, it'll be just like the Big 12, where it's the 2 teams that have the best record. And I'll go with Oregon and Utah. Utah is the best team in the Pac-12, but Oregon and USC was a hard choice because you're talking about 2 teams that both have first-year head coaches. The only difference is USC's head coach is in his first year there, but it's not his first year as a head coach, and Oregon has a brand new head coach. Both teams have brand new starting quarterbacks, but I do think Oregon has a little bit better defense than USC, so I'll go with Oregon and Utah in the Pac-12. And the SEC is the most predictable thing in the world, so we'll go with Georgia in the East, Alabama in the West. I'd like to see something different, but I just think it's obvious that it's Georgia in the East and Bama in the West. Not much to talk about. To me, you're going way out on a limb if you predict anybody besides Alabama or Georgia. Any thoughts on any of today's topics, please feel free to let me know. Let's go ahead and get our dad joke of the day in here. Don't fart in an Apple store. They don't have windows. And that wraps it up for today's Ref Brandon and the Todd Family YouTube video. Until next time, it's Ref Brandon saying, just like in pro wrestling, life can be over by the count of 3. Tell your friends and family how much you love them. Bye.